So we just downloaded the CSV files from Typeform. I'm going to open up the CSV file in Excel. So this is the exact same process as what we went through with Harmon's, but it should go faster because they won't have filled out the entire brief. Mm-hmm. So in Excel, like before, I go through and delete that first column, which is gibberish. And then I scan all the way over to the right, and there's 3 columns at the end, which are pretty much worthless. And then the next thing I do is I select all and I say wrap text. Okay. That way I can see all of the text in the boxes. And then I also format the width to be like 40, 45, something like that. It just gives me a little more space to see and read everything. And then I'm scanning for any of those returns. Okay. So with a return in your information, then you get the error in InDesign. So I don't know why it's doing this weird date stamp, but you can see that the date on here for concepts for Russ's is the 16th, which we'll have to adjust that because we don't have a template yet. So, but they have 4/16/21. I just reformatted it so it doesn't come over all weird. Still scanning. This is all mostly for that first page or the second page. And you can see here she's answered, take me to the final page. So she's going to skip all this stuff in the middle, which is fine. Okay. Because we're just doing the same design we've already done. And that's probably what she's going to put here at the very end for me. So it says, I will give Lauren any additional information as I get it. Okay. So I'm going to save this, close out, and I don't know why it has me saved again. It just always does. I'm going to go to the server now. And this is where, if it's not already set up, I'm going to set up the folders. But she's already, looks like we've already got a Russ's here, and she's already got Washington Street, which there's no code, so I'm going to actually go ahead and add that in.
Like the ones we follow.
Yep. Okay. Which I'm just going to call it WA for Washington. So it'd be Russ's WA is now going to be our code. And then you go to type 1, sales, reference, drawings. You can see where Brielle has already put in the footprint drawing. And then we have a folder for Creative Brief. And that's where I'm going to put this Excel file or the CSV file. So now I'm going to go and open up InDesign. We're going to do our data merge, which again should be quite quick. So we're at the data merge window. And we'll click on the little lines up here in the top right, and we'll go select data source. And this is where we're going to go. It gives you a little notification. You just hit OK. So this is where we're going to go to the folder on the server we just made for the store. We're going to select that CSV file. So type 1, sales, reference, creative brief, and then the CSV, and hit open. And then we'll need to click on this little merge icon. So you'll see the name of the CSV pop up here. And you'll click on this merge, and you want to make sure it's always a single record. And then hit OK. And it will do its fancy thing. It gives you this little message here about no overset text was generated. If you have a lot of writing, it will go outside the text box, and that's all that's talking about. I always scan to the very end, and if the last comment is in fact on this page, then that's a really good indication that there were no errors and it actually did fill in all the information from page 1 to the end. You can close out the data merge document. You'll also notice that it duplicated your file. So you always have this InDesign template file, and what it does is when it data merges, it creates another file. Okay. So you're not actually data merging or saving over the original. So this one now I'm going to actually save as, and I'm going to save it in that same folder with the CSV file. And this is where I'm actually going to save it with our code. So I'm going to put Creative Brief, and I'm going to do RUSSWA.
Okay.
So we always do the name of the thing first, whether it's a concept or a footprint, and then we do our 4-letter code for the store, and then our code for the specific location, and then it's an InDesign document, and I'm going to hit save. Okay. I'm going to close out of this original design or the creative brief because I'm just doing one right now. Now I'm going to start going through it and making sure that it's ready to go. So the first line of text that gets put in is the actual name of the store. So this says for Russ's Washington. I might add street to it because it's not just Russ's in Washington, it's actually on Washington Street. And again, that's something to where I could pull up go back to the master list. And this is again something that's in sales right now. But I found it earlier down here, Russ's Washington Street. So page 1, this is where most of the information is going to be for these type of projects, which are repeat projects. So we've got Russ's Washington. Again, I'm going to put street on here. Its locations, Lincoln, Nebraska. The account managers is Jeff Dancy, but I'm also going to add Brielle because when the designers are trying to remember who this improves, their proofs to and stuff, Brielle needs to be on there because she is Jeff's inside. The warehouse is AWG. This should match what's on here. Decor job reporting. This is the warehouse column. She doesn't have a price per square foot on mine.
Okay.
She does say the total project budget, though, is, I would assume, similar to previous Russ's, but I would get more info from them. I would get more info from Jeff as we move forward. So that one, right now, I'm just going to leave that there.
Okay.
We've got the budget including design, manufacturing, and install, and I'm going to delete out some of these extra commas. All the commas do is it's just the way that the program reads, because I have a list of things they can choose from in the Typeform. So decor budget, she has unsure at the moment. Again, she put this in pretty early. Square footage, we will get this info and turn into Lauren ASAP. Ceiling type, I'm going to put in A for now. Valence height, unsure, working on getting to this. So there's a lot of information she's missing. If this was a new design or something, I would probably not put this through. Does that make sense?
But where we've done something.
But just to get this moving, I'm less concerned about all that, at least for now.
So she has a couple of those things, like ceiling type and valence height aren't there, so I just put NA for now.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is something where technically we could save this in design file, and you may not want to assign it yet.
Until there's that info provided.
And then you go back in and you fill it in on the back end.
And then price per square foot is just usually left blank until they have more.
Right. You have to use some of the information to figure this out. So you need to know the square footage of the space here and the budget, and then you divide them and you get the price per square foot.
Gotcha. Okay. So we need that info for that.
Right.
Okay.
So this would be NA right now. Okay, so what do you need to get the project moving? We're going straight to 360. The mood board due date. We're not doing one. She has the concept or 360 due date the 16th. That is not happening. So I'm just going to put to be determined. And that's really based off of when we can get the 360 from engineering.
Yeah.
Number of concepts needed, 1. The departments to be designed. I don't know if there's an option in the Typeform, but I'm just going to put all because we're doing the full 360.
Okay.
Center store essentials, aisle markers, check stand lights, locators, and I'm going to put a note on here and just say pull from previous design decor package.
Okay. So the same thing here. So just pull from previous decor package.
And then project completion date. Typically, this is where do they want it done by July or by August or September, and we may not know that yet either. So I'm going to put to be determined.
To be determined. Okay.
Okay, so that's page 1. This is probably the most important information for these type of jobs is on this page. The rest of the brief, the scope page I usually leave in because it's basically what are we doing, and she should say something to the effect of they want the same design or decor as the previous Russes.
Super shade with red.
Yep.
But fit to scale in that location.
Yeah, exactly. It is a remodel. Again, what are the reference materials? This is where I'm going to add a little bit of information, but she's saying we were given PDF digital drawings, which is great. I'm actually going to go in, and this is where I'm going to put the file path to the previous store design for the designer. So this is where I'm going to go on the server, and Russ's, I'm going to say, I can't remember if we started in 2019 or 2020, so I'm going to start in 2019. This is where I put on my Sherlock Holmes hat. Because I don't just have all this information stored in my brain. I do have to go look for things. So Russ's Market in 2019, I'm trying to remember which location. I know we started a couple stores we never finished. Maybe I have to go back to 2018. Oops. Russ's Coddington. For some reason, I feel like that's the big one we did. Production finished. Yes. So one of your big clues is if you look in the production file and the finished, and you have a ton of engineering sheets. That's the year we did it. So Coddington is the store that we're wanting to mimic. So if I go to Type 1, Design, or Design and Engineering, even go to 360, you can see here's our 360s, the OTL files. I'm going to space bar it, which is a preview, just to check in and make sure. I mean, this is one we have on our portfolios. I am going to reference Design to Engineering file, because that would be the most current. That's what we had produced off of. And then the designer can always go back to any of the other files they need. So I'm just going to copy the file path for that. For some reason, InDesign doesn't like to copy the file path and paste it in, so I actually have to end up pasting it into another full program like Teams. And then I copy it out of there and put it into InDesign. It's just dumb. So I'm going to put Course 2, 2019, moved over to the server. So this is the file path to that original. I'm going to put Coddington Design. So that's where they need to pull the file. And then there's center store stuff here, but I'm assuming that the designer, once they go into this folder, they'll be able to access whatever they need for this job. Which this one I'd probably give to Dave.
Okay.
This is a bit more, the decor itself, the package, there's a little more complexity to it. And I think he will actually work through it faster as far as fitting it to a new space and making it look good. So I would probably go ahead and assume this is one that he needs to work on. But you will have to, when it hits, when we finally get the template and we actually get into creative, we'll need to look at his schedule and see how fast he can turn it around and see where he's got other stuff, because this is a job that Monica or Drew could even help with. Okay, so after the scope, all these other pages we really just delete out. Because again, we're just putting the same package in, so the customer information doesn't matter. We could actually go back to the original brief for Coddington to kind of find this information. So I just delete out all of those. And then the additional notes page, sometimes there are additional notes. Right now it just says I will give Lauren any additional information if I get it. And what I'd like to do, because we're missing so many things, is I'm going to actually just save this InDesign file on the server. And then when we have more information and when we get the template, before I actually send this to a designer, I can go back in and make sure that I fill this out more fully. So what I will do is project overview. I would put in the information that we have, budgets. We would do the calculations for square footage. If they have a completion date, we'll put that in there. And then obviously at the time, we'll figure out when we can get it back to sales. And then the scope, again, this part wouldn't change a whole lot if we have additional resources. So one thing I might say is, hey, this store is on our portfolio. And I might actually provide the link so that the designer, again, if you assign this to Dave, he did it, so he's going to know exactly what it is. But like, let's say you give it to Monica, she might actually enjoy going and looking at the store online to get a good idea for how the design turned out. Here's Russ's right there. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to add it in as a file path. So to create a hyperlink, you go to Type, Hyperlink and Cross-Reference. I want a new hyperlink from the URL. It's going to make it tiny, so then I go to Character Styles, and I double-click on it, and I want it to be based on the answer.
Okay.
That's all it's going to do is make it the same size, but it will be blue, and it will be underlined. Okay, so again, I've given her or him, whoever works on it, the file path to the original design. Here is the store on the portfolio. I could also add in, here's images on our server you could reference, installed pictures or whatever. And then once we have a template, we could also add that. The file path is here. Yeah, which they're typically saved in the same place on the server all the time. But again, what the brief is doing is trying to put all the information in one place so it's easy for the designer to access it, which is why it's kind of pointless to put out a brief without information.
Yeah.
And then any additional notes before I signed it out, let's say I get the template done, it's now fully in Creative, I'm going to check in with Brielle and say, hey, Brielle, I'm just double checking. We're taking this design, we're fitting it to the new store. Is there any additional information Jeff shared with you? Is there anything they didn't like we want to leave out? Is there anything we want to make sure got adjusted? That's where I would put any of that information, is this additional notes page.
Okay.
So for now, I'm just going to save this brief and then close out. I'm not going to assign it right now because, again, we're missing a lot of information. But what we've done is we just got ourselves ahead of the game.
So when it does hit with templating and stuff.
Yep, when we actually get it back in Creative. So right now it's still sitting in Sales. But when it does come back to Creative, when we push it through templating and we're ready to work on it, then the brief has already been processed. Now we just need to open up the InDesign file and adjust some of the information and finalize it.
Okay.
So that's something that you could put in a note here. So again, Brielle has just started the project by putting some notes in. So you could just put a note in, and I'll do one here. I'm not going to send it to anyone, but I'm just going to say, brief has been processed and is saved on the server. And I'm doing most of this for you as well, so that you can remember when this does come back where we left off. That's why it's important to do comments in Smartsheet, because we need to know where we leave things off. Because I'm going to finish this and I'm going to move on with stuff, and I'm going to forget that I already went through all this. Okay, so I've put that information where it is on the server. Brief has been processed and saved on the server, and then I'm going to make a note. Update before assigning to a designer. There was a lot of missing info. Update in design. Okay. Missing info. Dave was the original designer for the Coddington Russ's store. He could be very efficient with this design if he has the capacity. Okay, so that's my note to you, basically.
Perfect.
So I'm not going to tag you in it because, again, it'll just go to your email and then you'll be like 2 weeks later. It won't matter.
Yeah.
But at least it's in Smartsheet. It's been documented. So when this job hits, you'll go through and read all the comments. You'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember sitting there with Lauren and we put this through and I know exactly where this project is at.
Cool.
Info, we will assign a due date once we get the 360 template and look at current capacity. So the last thing that we need to do is put the project into function Fox. Since we're kind of doing this preemptively, the project isn't officially in Creative yet. It is still in Sales. So here's our project. There's not a quote number assigned. This project is labeled under a code right now, PRJ00026. We put that in the brief. When we go to function Fox, if we get a quote number later, we can always change it. So it's in the AWG warehouse. So we'll go down and we'll do AWG. We'll put the project code, which is PRJ00026. Project name. Copy that. Russ is Washington Street. This is a retail decor project. Remodel. Ignore the due date. It's in progress. Sales team is Jeff. We don't have a designer assigned yet. We don't have a budget. So I guess I'll put to be determined there. Save new. Because we don't have a budget, it's going to be hard. I'm using the templates. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go just assign tasks based on a template, just so we get all of the milestones in there, and then we'll have to modify it. So I'm going to go based off of an 80,000. We won't need concept development. We will need this full store because it's going straight to 360. We'll still need install, kickoff. We won't need a mood board. Proofing's fine. Research and development, we really won't need that. Revision, ring critique. Set up for engineering estimating. I'm not going to copy the estimate hours because, again, I don't have a budget, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to hit save. Right now, the goal was that we just have tasks in there. So if I'm in AWG and I look at Russ's, I can see my list of tasks here. The full store design development is going to be the primary function for the designer. Obviously, if there's revisions, if they do a ring critique, they may or may not with something like this. And then basically the final steps, the estimating, engineering, install. I'm leaving the consultation, the download meeting in there just in case. And then, of course, you have the kickoff. Other things that we might want to add, we may want to put template in there just in case we need to help out with that for some pieces. But for the most part, I think it should be pretty straightforward. So I'm going to leave it at that. And then again, because we don't have a budget, can't really give a estimate. So right now that'll just show up in our estimate report as a 0. When we get a budget, we'll probably try to add in some time. And that is pretty much it.